If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by portrait photography, or just at a loss of what to focus on to take you to that next level, then come hang with me. I help guide portrait photographers just like you to stay clear and sharp in camera and with your goals. I'm your host, photographer, educator, and weirdly positive mama of four, Emily Supio. And this is the Stay Focused podcast. Photography advice to help you stay focused. Hey everyone, it's Emily Supio, and thank you for pressing play on today's episode of the Stay Focused podcast. You made a great choice being here today because on this episode, we are going to tackle one of the biggest problems that parents and grandparents have when it comes to taking great pictures. And this is a problem that happens not just with those of you who are new or newer to photography, but even for those photographers who have been practicing for 3 months, 6 months, a year, longer. Do you think you know what I might be talking about? That big struggle, that big issue that most people that have a camera and want to take great pictures find themselves in at one point or another is focus. Not getting clear pictures, not having those tack sharp, crisp images that they want, and feeling frustrated when each picture is a little soft or blurry or not in focus, especially when it's that money shot, right? That shot that you finally get your son or daughter to look at you with a huge smile, and it is the shot that you wanted to blow up super big and put on your holiday cards and send out everywhere. But that's the shot that comes out of focus, right? It's a little soft. It's not where you want it to be. So on today's episode, I want to really dive in deep to what some of those focus issues might be so that you don't feel quite as frustrated when you are out shooting, and so that you feel more confident that you're going to get those in focus pictures that you want, right? For those of you who are even more serious about learning portrait photography so you can get those great pictures of your kids, right now I do have a free masterclass, the 4-step framework to confidently shooting beautiful portraits. Now, if you are catching this episode when it airs, you can register right now for your spot in this free masterclass. If you're catching this episode a week or 2 or a month later, this link might not work for you, but don't worry, I'm always offering classes all the time. So if it's not working right now, it will be in the future. To register for this free masterclass, go to cozyclicks.com/framework. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, because we are now on YouTube for the video part of this podcast, you can just click the link in the description and you can register for that free class today. Okay, so let's tackle focus, because all of us have issues with focus at some time. If you have met a photographer who has told you every single picture they've ever taken has always been crisp and clear because they know what they're doing, they are straight up lying to you, okay? Everyone takes pictures at one point or another that come out of focus. And you know what? Even though I have been a photographer, a professional photographer, a hobbyist photographer for well over a decade, still to this day, I have some of my pictures that turn out a little blurry. Not quite as many of them anymore because I know some of the tricks that help me make sure that I have crisp photos, but I still do from time to time have pictures that come out of focus. So I want you right now to kind of keep that in the back of your head, that there's always going to be a time when you do have a picture that comes out slightly blurry. And the reason for that is because there are a lot of moving pieces when it comes to photography. There's a lot of parts to the puzzle that all have to click together to make everything seem seamless and work. And if just one of those is slightly off, that could be your issue that's causing the focus problems that you're having. So
I want you kind of to remember that in the back of your head, that there's a lot going on when it comes to photography and a lot when it comes to focus. So there's not just one reason in particular. There's not just one secret or one technique that you don't know about that's suddenly going to make all of your pictures tack sharp. Okay. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things, and there's a lot of reasons why you might be taking pictures that are softer. So it's not just one main reason. It's not just one thing you haven't learned or read about yet. Okay. It's several things that come together. So I want you to know that too. So it's super important to take the time to really truly understand all of the working parts of photography so that your photos do come out in focus most of the time. So a lot of people, a lot of parents that get their new camera and start taking pictures might see a lot of that blurriness right away. And you might think, oh no, did I not buy the right camera? Is it just me? Like, why are my pictures not coming out? I've got this expensive camera. Something isn't clicking here. I am just not good enough. So these feelings go through everybody. Okay. Even I have felt this way before at one point or another. And I want you to know that it is not you. Okay. It is not your gear. So a lot of us just start shooting thinking that, or hoping that one will come out in focus. Okay. Like, we just press that shutter button 100 times and hold our breath and hope that we get lucky and one of the pictures will come out in focus and we're good with that, right? Like, you think, okay, if I just push it enough and go back through and look at all the pictures, one of them is going to come out and that will be the winner. And that's one strategy that you could have when it comes to learning photography and practicing photography, but it's going to make you feel bad a lot of the times because while you might get that one shot, the other 99 or 199 or 1,099 that you took are going to be blurry. So you need to give yourself the time to understand photography and have fun with it and really just understand each part. So first, what I want you to do, instead of moving so fast, instead of pressing that shutter 100 times, the first part of getting crisp, clear images is just to slow things down. Okay. Really take the time to understand all of the parts of photography. And that's going to bring me into number 2. Okay. So number 1 is I want you to slow things down. Don't press the shutter 100 times, but really take the time to be intentional and understand everything. Number 2, that first thing that I really want you to understand is manual mode. Get off of automatic, really understand the specific settings of manual mode. Really understand what each one does, how each part of manual mode is going to affect your picture. When you take the time to really sit down and understand how they all interconnect with each other, it starts to make more and more sense. Now, that's going to move me into number 3. I guess I'm going quicker than I thought I was going to, but number 3, everything just kind of flows with each other, I guess. But number 3 takes me into the most important part of manual mode when it comes to focus. And that part is your shutter speed. You want to make sure you're setting your shutter speed quick. Okay. Especially if you are chasing around a toddler, chasing around your grandkids, chasing around not a toddler, but like my 8-year-old, not a toddler anymore, but he doesn't sit still for a second. He is on the go all the time, running, moving. He is full of energy all the time. So maybe it's not even a toddler. Maybe it's an older kid that just likes to run around and not be in front of the camera. But you're, running around. So you want to make sure that that shutter speed is set correctly. So you're going to want to set that shutter speed a little bit faster. Not setting your shutter speed correctly is one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason why a lot of my students that I work with, when I look through at their work and we kind of troubleshoot and we look through their settings, that seems to always be the culprit. The reason is the shutter speed. So right now, I want you to maybe click that shutter speed a little higher or a little bit faster than you usually do. Okay. So we are just breaking things down, right? So number 1 was slowing things down. 2, understanding manual mode and how it all fits together. 3, really work on that shutter speed. And that takes me to the last point that I want to talk about in today's episode when it comes to focus, and that is you. I want you to really look at you as a photographer, you as the person that is holding the camera, how you're holding the camera, how you are moving, how you are breathing, how your nerves are at that time, because you and all of those things about you are going to affect the sharpness of the photo too. And a lot of times we don't even think of ourselves as being that link to blurry pictures. So let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, if you are a heavy breather, if you're running around chasing a toddler or an 8-year-old, like we were just talking about, you might be a little bit out of breath. And you might not realize it, but when you're out of breath or breathing heavy from running, or just maybe you're even walking fast, our breath, we tend to breathe. And when we breathe, our shoulders go up, our hands go up. So if you're watching me right now on YouTube, you can kind of see if I'm breathing heavier, my whole body just kind of moves. And if you're not watching me, if you're listening to the audio on iTunes or you're listening to me in your car right now, you do that yourself. Like breathe in, take some deep breaths or even like short, quick breaths and just feel how your body is moving. If you're breathing heavy and you've got that camera in your hands, that camera is moving with you. And if you press the shutter at the same time, you've got that slight movement of breath, that is going to affect the blurriness or sharpness of your picture, right? And we don't even think of something like that most of the time, but we've got to think not so technical all the time. It's not always these technical settings and technical pieces of the camera that are causing our pictures to be blurry. Sometimes it's just us. Okay, so watch your breath. Also, if you're out there, if you're a little bit nervous when you take pictures, and a lot of people are, if you're a little nervous, I know that a lot of times I start to shake a little bit, maybe not a lot, maybe I'm not all over the place, but just slightly. If your hands are shaking just a little bit, or if the camera's heavier than you're used to, and you're holding that and your hands are a little bit shaky, pay attention to that. Look at your hands and see, are they shaking? Are they moving up and down? How still and steady are your hands? Things like that are going to affect the focus of your picture, the blurriness of the photos that you're taking. So pay attention to you and yourself. Remember, it's not always the super technical pieces that are causing the big issues, and that always seems to be what we want to go to. But what I want you to do the next time you go out to practice is really look at yourself, look at your breath, look at your body. If you're someone who knows you're just a shakier person or a heavier breather, maybe you want to think about getting a tripod and having your camera on a tripod where it's going to be very still and steady, and you know that. If you're not, just make sure that you're very intentional about it, and it's really going to help you out with focus. Okay, so let's recap what we've talked about as far as focus. And again, I want to reiterate that focus issues are not just you. This is something that happens for brand new beginners. It's something that happens with people that have been doing it for years. It's something that still happens to me to this day, that one of my pictures are just soft, not as clear as I wanted it to be. Okay, so 100%, it is not you. This is something across the board that happens to everybody. Some things you can do to curb that. Number 1, slow things down. Okay, be really intentional. Number 2, start to understand manual mode. Start to understand how all of the settings tie in and connect with each other. Number 3, that main setting that I want you to really focus on with manual mode is your shutter speed. Okay. Increase that a little bit because that's usually the culprit when it comes to blurry pictures. At least when I work with so many of my students, that's what we find. And number 4, look at you. Look at yourself, look at your breath, look at the way that you are moving, because all of that connects to the focus of your picture. Remember that it does not have to be the camera itself and the technical pieces itself, but it comes down to you as well. So the next time you go out to shoot, I want you to keep all of those things in the back of your mind and see if it makes a difference with the sharpness and the clarity of your images. Now, remember, if you would like a little more training, I do have my free masterclass that is available right now. If you're listening to this episode the week or two that it airs, you can go to cozyclicks.com/framework. And when you go over there, you can register for the 4-step framework to confidently shooting beautiful portraits. And we dive much deeper into some of the focus issues, plus quite a few other things that are really going to help take your pictures to that next level. All right, I hope that resonated with you today. I hope that this gave you some great advice, some great actionable steps that you can take the next time you take your camera out of your bag and go out there to shoot your kids or your grandkids. And I hope that you see a difference in the sharpness, clarity, and focus of your photos. Now, one thing I want to say before I sign off here today, if you enjoy the Stay Focused podcast, if you enjoy these episodes, and you would take a couple seconds to head over to iTunes to leave a rating and review for the Stay Focused podcast, it would really mean a lot to me. And if you don't have that many seconds, if you just have 1 second and you would just head over there and hit the subscribe button, that would be fantastic too. I would really appreciate that. That helps me, it helps the Stay Focused podcast, and it helps those photographers or those people out there who are looking to learn more about their camera, find the show so that they can feel more confident with their camera too. All right, you guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I'll be back next week. We've got some great guests lined up for season 3, as well as some solo episodes like this one with just me. So until then, here's to staying in focus in camera and with your goals. Bye, you guys.